This is Dear Psychopomp. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. As usual, please note that I am not a professional psychologist, doctor, or lawyer. The information and discussions shared on this podcast are not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Some of the topics covered may be emotionally intense or triggering. Your well-being is important, and I encourage you to prioritize self-care as you listen. That said, I am so very honored to introduce Joél Simone Maldonado, affectionately known as the Grave Woman. She brings over a decade of groundbreaking experience and innovation to the fields of end-of-life, death, and grief care. And Joél, thank you so much for joining me today. I just wanted to say that you're my absolute hero of the death care industry.
Wow.
You are setting the standards for me as a death doula.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me in, and thank you. Thank you. I don't know what to say to that.
No, just soak it in. It's awesome. I was wondering if you could tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and your passion projects.
Definitely. What do I do? I'm a funeral director or a licensed funeral director, embalmer, and death care educator. And my passion projects, my number one passion project is just life, right? Like just staying alive. That's fun. Um, I'm very passionate about my family, my husband, my dogs, and my academy, the Multicultural Death and Grief Care Academy.
I love that. What are your dogs' names?
Love and Amore. Love is a
Oh,
13-year-old um, Chihuahua Yorkie mix. She's
oh,
adorable. She's grumpy. She's bitchy. She's
yeah.
fabulous.
Small
Um,
dog, yeah.
yeah. And Amore is a miniature poodle Chihuahua mix who is 2 years and 2 months old.
Oh, just a baby.
Hmm.
We have two dogs as well, and Juno is 100 pounds, Pyrenees mix,
Oh,
and Bizou is 135 pounds of Akbash and Mastiff, and just, she thinks she's a cat.
oh my gosh. At 125 pounds.
My very own weighted blanket every night.
They sound marvelous. I
They
love the name.
are. Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing how much animals can add to a household with
Hmm.
like the spirit of the house. And oh, I love it. I love it. We have 9 animals,
Oh,
and I would have so many more if we had more space and I could convince my husband.
okay. I have to know what are the other animals.
3 cats, 2 parrots, and 2 lizards. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's that. I love that for you.
I love it for me too. It's just all the good vibes. So, you mentioned that you were an embalmer, and I've been wanting to talk to an embalmer for a very long time. That's something I want to get into as well. Just that sacredness of the consistency of after death care for that person, for the family, and I think it's such an important job that doesn't really get a lot of airtime. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that we're scared to talk about and ask. And so I won't ask you about the process or anything like that, but I'm wondering how, like, first of all, how long have you been embalming for?
So full transparency, I have not worked in a funeral home full time for over 3 years. Um, when I was working in a full funeral home full time, I embalmed for, trying to think back, about 6 or 7 years.
Wow. And so how did doing that, being a part of that process, change your perspective on death?
Oh my God. It completely flipped everything upside down. I remember being a little kid and going into the embalming room with my uncle and not having a perception of like mortality really, or like grasping it the way that I do now. But the moment that it changed for me, I remember distinctly. I was in mortuary school, and after class, we had what was called lab, right? Where we went into the atrium and we watched an embalming being done by the class ahead of us. And the person that they were embalming was an autopsy case. And in the lab, there were mirrors on the ceiling so that us in the atrium could look up and see what was happening
Whoa.
inside of the body. And in that moment, it hit me that all that this is a vessel. It is a marvelous vessel. It is a phenomenally designed vessel, but still a vessel. Our souls, our spirit, our essence is what makes us, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And
I feel the same way.
that has been reaffirmed on so many levels, not just through embalming, but think about when a person is born and they're a baby, right? That spirit still exists within them, that soul still exists within them, but that vessel is totally dependent on us,
Yes.
right? When people, if we're blessed enough and fortunate enough to become old, and maybe through Alzheimer's or sickness or just through the aging process itself, it's just that vessel that's again dependent on others, you know. But that soul and that spirit still exists within.
Absolutely. That's what makes us human. And that soul and that awareness, and you know, if you've ever been around anyone as they're transitioning, you can feel the electricity and the energy in that room after. It's almost measurable to witness that, and it's difficult, of course, but it's also a blessing to be able to be a part of that. And it's not often I get to kind of nerd out about death with other people, so I think this interview is more for me than it is for you.
I'm just glad to be here.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's a lot of people ask me, most people ask me, like, how can you do that? It's terrifying and depressing, and death is not depressing. The grief is. Absolutely, the emotions around it. But the closer I am to death, like ever since, like I used to be a cemetery director back in the day, and been in death doula for a couple years now, and like you said, my life has flipped upside down. The closer you are to death, the more alive you feel. And it's almost like it brings me joy because I have that perspective of, okay, like one day my song's going to end. What do I want it to sound like? Who do I want to play with? Like, you know, who's going to orchestrate this? Like, I'm in charge of my own song, right? And I'm just wondering, you know, my metaphor is life is a song. And what's your perspective on life?
Live life, love hard.
Yeah. Well, and love. I think that's the meaning of life. If it's not the meaning, it's the reason.
Right. And it's so interesting you use song. I'm kind of going to go way off in the deep end here, but I think we're together, so I don't feel judged or anything. I was actually messaging with my sister this morning. Do you know that song? It's like somebody that I used to know.
Yeah.
That song, right? Speaking of embalming, I worked in a corporate funeral home in the prep center. And so it seemed like whenever I was in the embalming room and really into embalming or learning from someone or working alongside someone, that song would come on. And I used to have it, that song literally, you talk about nostalgia, brings me back to that place. And I was sitting in my car this morning and heard that song. And I've often had the thought that in real time, when hearing this song in the prep room, that song brings up the thoughts for me. Have I died 1,000 times? Have I lived 1,000 times? And every time I hear this song, it's almost like it's happened again. And I'm in the act of caring for someone, but what if this person is a version of me in the multiverse? And I'm so close to death and have gotten the privilege and the gift of losing the fear around seeing it firsthand. And I'm now in the place where I'm caring for myself throughout these timelines, if that makes sense. And then when I would hear it outside of the funeral home, it would be like, oh gosh, did it happen again? Like it brings up that
Yeah.
feeling. I don't even know if that makes sense.
It
But
does. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. That's one thing I say with presentations that I do is, dying is easy. The body knows what to do. There's the withdrawal of elements. It's, if you do get the privilege to grow old, because, not all of us do. And just to be able to have, I don't know, just music is such a universal language. And it's so beautiful. And I mean, you always hear people say like, oh, I'm going to play this song at my funeral. Because it can touch your soul and give you that perspective that, I have lived through many, many things, and I have died through many things. The loss of self, the loss of identity, loss of a loved one, each time that happens, you are a new person with a new reality that you have to navigate and get used to. And I think it's really hard because people hold on to grief because that's kind of the last emotion that they had for that person. And they think letting go of their grief means they have to let go of their person. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily believe that grief is an emotion. And one of my students taught me that. She said it to me, and so I'll say it here. Grief isn't an emotion, it's an experience. And the housewives inspire me a lot, particularly in this case, the housewives of Beverly Hills. I was watching the reunion, and Andy was, questioning Kyle about, her relationship with Mauricio and if she wanted to get back together and those things. And Kathy Hilton became extremely emotional. And Andy asked her, why are you so emotional about this? Do you want them to get back together? And she said yes. And he couldn't believe it because if anyone watches the show, they know that Kathy was not a big fan of Mauricio. And she said, I don't like things to change. I would rather things be the same than to change. And when you think about that as it relates to grief, even when we lose a loved one, whether it be to death or to a breakup, right? It's that pain of things changing in a way that oftentimes we don't have control over. And so we're forced to bear witness to those emotions within ourselves that make us uncomfortable, that we'd rather not deal with, that we didn't have to deal with before they got sick or before they left or before they died.
Yeah, like a longing of how things were because that was normal and safe. It's the comfortable chaos versus the unknown peace. and just, I mean, nobody likes change when it's out of your control.
Right. When it's out of
When it's out of your control.
uncontrollably
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of $1 right now, I would not be upset at all.
No, I'm like, oh no, what a problem to have.
But
Darn. Well,
right,
they say you attract what you fear, so
I'm terrified of $1 million right now.
oh, that's just, can't even say those words.
But you're right, and I think all of those boil down to what our consciousness perceives and as an experience, and of course, there's emotions attached to that. You know, fear, anger, depression, um, joy, jealousy,
Yeah.
all of the emotions, even the ones we don't talk about, like gluttony, eating uncontrollably, or diarrhea, upset stomach.
Yeah.
So,
It physically changes you too.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think one thing I had a difficult time with, I've been around death since I was 4 years old. And so he's kind of an old friend for me. I call him Sharon.
Sharon.
Sharon, like Heron. I carry around a little obulus every day just in case. Don't want to be stuck on the shores, but I yeah, it's with my father passing away due to his alcoholism. He didn't even make it to 60, and he was alone, and we were estranged for 2 years by then. So all that complex, everything on top of that. And it took like a good year and a half, and I started feeling joy, and then I started feeling guilt. I was like, no, I feel like I should still be sad. I feel like I should still be mourning. And so I sat down with myself, and I like to journal, and this was before I was an end-of-life doula. This is when I was a 911 dispatcher, and I realized that, grief isn't a monopoly. You can feel grief and joy at the same time. And you can be confused about it, but you shouldn't feel guilty about it. You are moving through, and that's healthy. And that's good. And it doesn't mean that you're forgetting about your loved one or leaving them behind or anything, but it's just you moving forward, and you can have so many emotions all at once. And so it's okay to be happy while you're grieving too.
Yeah, and it's almost maybe a bad comparison, but it's what I hear a lot of my friends that are moms talk about after they have their babies. It's like this gaining of this new role that does not come with a book, like grief. But then the responsibility of caring for yourself, but having no idea who you are anymore as yourself, and losing more and more pieces of that the more that you pour into this experience of parenthood or motherhood. It's amazing how much birth and death mirror each other,
Yeah.
even in the ways that we don't think about, really. And it's almost like we don't remember before we're born, but we're afraid of not remembering after someone dies. Like, we're afraid we'll forget them. Or I remember when my grandfather died, I asked my grandmother, and she got so upset, but not at me, just at the thought. I asked her, do you think that he'll recognize you now that he's gone? And it was like that was a thought she could not handle. Because in her belief system, death is the end of everything.
Right.
So, Yeah.
So what do you think happens after we die? What do
Oh.
you what do you hope for?
Um, hot buttery popcorn existing on the other side.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I believe from my seat of awareness at this time that there is a veil that separates that essence, that spirit, that soul that we were talking about, our
Mhm.
vessel being the home for. I believe there is a veil that separates that. However, I do believe that communication between that veil is possible. And because I
Mhm.
believe communication between that veil is possible, or throughout that, within that veil is possible, that automatically assumes that there's a level of consciousness on the other side.
Mhm.
What that consciousness looks like, I don't know, but I do believe that because communication is possible, that communication isn't necessarily random, right?
Mhm.
And so that dictates recognition of what's still here.
Mhm. I like
So
that.
perhaps that is a pipe dream, but it is a belief system. And that belief system to me has been reaffirmed through things like spirit totems, spirit animals, spirit numbers, or angel numbers,
Mhm.
um, dreams,
Yeah, I see your necklace.
right? The ability to communicate with what I believe to be the spirit of those on the other side. And that's just been something that I've had the ability to do my entire life without realization of what I was doing as a child. When I became aware of it,
Mm.
I tried to shut it off because I realized not everybody else could do it and people thought it was evil. Um, I hope that there's something, even something like that. That phone never rings. No one knows this number, right? Can you edit this out? I'm so sorry.
No, that's kind of cool actually.
Okay, it'll stop in a
Like
minute.
as we're talking about it, that like
Right.
getting
It's cool for
goosebumps.
you. It's scary for me because I'm in here by myself. But um just I believe like and I hope that it's better, but what is better when we think about love, when we think about family, when we think about connection, when we think about warm buttery popcorn, right?
Mhm.
What's better than that? What can we conceptualize? I believe, and this is not so much about the other side, this is about the process to getting there. I believe that I've always had it in my mind. I do believe in God. I don't think death is painful. I think the process can be painful, but death itself, I don't believe is painful. And by that, I mean, I
Mm-mm.
know there's a lot of people that fear that when their loved one was shot or when their loved one was in an accident, that they felt pain in their death.
Mhm.
I believe that there's something that almost snatches us the millisecond before the impact.
Yeah. Well,
However,
and yeah, absolutely. I tell my clients death isn't painful. You might have some pain to manage from an illness or
mhm,
something like that, but the actual act of passing away, scientifically, your brain releases all the happy chemicals,
yes,
and without getting too deep into it, when if you go into shock, you're not feeling anything.
right,
You're not feeling that pain.
right. Like
So
you
your
said,
body's taking care of you.
right. And
Yeah.
that's kind of that phenomenal design that we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier.
The
Like
body
that,
knows
right.
what to do.
It's mind blowing.
It
And
is.
something designed it that way. Um, I also believe that we have to earn the right to die. Death is not given, it's earned, in my opinion. Even if you attempt to take your life, right? some people aren't successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of whatever reasons, but I hope that there's a reward on the other side for living this part or making it through this part. We were talking
Mm-hmm.
about kindness earlier. I hope it's kindness. I hope there's love. I hope there's peace. Those are the things that I hope on the other
Mm-hmm.
side.
It's gotta be love. It's gotta be. And that's, I'm semi-spiritual, semi-scientific, and, I think that there are spiritual things going on that science simply cannot measure. And so we call it magic, or we get scared of it, or we reject it. But with what you were speaking about before with your hopes is really aligned with mine as well, because I believe in the law of the law of energy, conservation of energy, which states that one, we are all made of energy, and two, energy cannot be created or destroyed. And so just because we're not in this vessel anymore, that doesn't mean that we're not existing. And it doesn't mean that we can't influence energy around us. And so, I do pay attention to the angel numbers and the synchronicities and the songs that my dad plays on the radio. And I'm like, okay, yeah, hi, Dad, I'm listening. And, in some of my darkest moments when I was mourning the death of my father, the lights would flicker. And so, of course, like practical scientific me first is like, all right, let's go tighten the bulb and check the fuse and blah, blah, blah. And of course, everything's fine. And so now it's happened at 3 different places that I've lived in since my father's died. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. Like, yep, sorry I ignored the first one. Hi, Dad, what's up? And it's really hard to be in grief when you can still talk to their energy and update them, and there's burn letters, and there's so many ways that you can still put your love out there for them. And I think part of the fear of what happens when we pass away is just, am I still going to exist? And the answer is yes, just not in this body. And that's okay. Like, our bodies are borrowed, our time is borrowed, and we have to give it back one day. Yeah. So definitely, yeah, it's fascinating. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about is the cultural competency in the funeral industry. And so tell me a little bit about what inspired you to incorporate that into your teachings.
I guess the easiest way to answer that question would be what cultural competency in the funeral industry. um,
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
the inspiration behind my focus on cultural competency was the fact that number one, I'm a black woman in a big
Mm-hmm.
body, with black woman hair, hips, lips, features, and I am loved and have been raised and surrounded by beautiful black and people of color my entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went to mortuary school, there was no reflection of my culture, no reflection of my lips,
Oh,
my hips, my hair, my skin tone, my language, my expressions, anything.
right.
And I was being taught that if you want to be a funeral director, you need to fit in this box and learn how to take care of these people. It's like, hold up, no. People that look like me, think like me, move like me, or shape like me, have hair like me, have my skin tone, and many others die too. And so from there, it went to being on the job and becoming tokenized. Oh, I don't know how to take out braids, you do it. Or I share this story all the time of walking into the embalming room and the funeral director was cutting off the woman's braids from her scalp, essentially cutting off all of this hair. Or the fact that my hair stretches when I pull it, you know?
Yeah.
And when it comes in contact with water, it shrinks. And seeing people completely blown away and thrown off and charging families to figure out what to do about that.
Oh,
It's like, no, 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 hold up. Our standard protocol is to shampoo, condition, and prepare decedents, white decedents, for the beautician to come in. Why is that not the standard protocol for the family, for a black family, or for a black decedent? Right?
yeah.
Common sense to me. And so being frustrated about that, being frustrated by being told by white medical examiners that I need to call the funeral home and make sure that you're the one that's supposed to take this decedent. I just happened to steal a funeral home van and show up at your medical examiner's office knowing this person's name and where they're going. Okay, sure, you know?
Oh,
Or
man.
having conversations with people all around the world who are like, I had to go in and see my loved one in a state that didn't create a good memory picture for me.
Yeah.
And it was because the funeral home did not know how to care for a black person or a person of color. Or I'm told that my culture is inappropriate or the way that I express my grief is a disturbance to other people in the funeral home or in the hospital. And so that was the motivation. And
Yeah.
frankly, I just got sick of the bullshit. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I get pissed off, I find solutions, which I don't know is a healthy way of dealing with anger.
I
Because
think so.
if you can't tell, I'm still a little bothered by this. But I think it's more productive to present a solution to problems like this. And so my solution was the Multicultural Death and Grief Care Academy, where I educate death doulas and funeral directors and healthcare professionals and grief care professionals about all of those things, the language that we use around death with marginalized communities, with diverse communities.
Yeah.
In about, I think it was the statistic I saw, 7 years, technically, white people will be the minority in the world population.
Oh, yeah.
So, why is it that there's no education around caring for the majority of the population on the planet? Um,
Because that's just how it's always been done, in quotations.
that system is dead. It's dead.
No, it needs to evolve with the world. And that's just, I am angry for you because that's just messed up.
It is, and don't be angry for me. Like, be angry for
I'm angry for
millions of people, that
yeah.
are impacted by this lack of cultural competency. And so, to answer your question directly, I decided that the best thing that I could do with the information that I had was to try to eliminate the possibility of that happening for people that look like me. And the way to do that was through educating other people that have the skill set that I have.
That's that's just heartbreaking that that's even deep breath. So what was the basic thing that you try and just portray, if you could put it into one sentence for the listeners, about cultural competency while we're alive? What would you say?
Not everybody's the same. That's just, that's it. Not
That's
everybody's the
just
same.
reality. Yeah.
And so, because of that, like, not everybody grieves the same. Not everybody expects or respects the same things when we are transitioning, when we're dying, and when we're
Mm-hmm.
grieving.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that made me want to become a death doula, was having those conversations, those life reviews, doing those legacy projects, to be able to find that peace before they pass away. And, so that no one has to die alone if they don't want to. I mean, I know some people like to not have an audience. They'll wait till after the great show, but it's yeah, that's just so succinct. Every single person is different. So, how have you found the reaction to the courses that you teach? A lot of people signing up. Yeah, good.
Overwhelming.
Yeah?
And it's overwhelming in a lot of ways. It's overwhelming, especially when I first started back during COVID. Myself and my mentor, Miss Anita Grant, taught a course called Racism in Death Care, and literally overnight it went around the world.
Wow.
Hundreds of people signed up overnight. So many people signed up, we had to do it like multiple times a day for 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, the timing was perfect. It was COVID. People were thinking about death and dying. There was a lot of media coverage. And then it was, again, being pissed off about George Floyd, right? What's the best solution what's the best thing we could do? Like, how can we create, you know, something positive, not from his death, but from the attention around death and dying right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was overwhelming. And it's been overwhelming to me to hear back from the professionals that I work with about the impact that little simple things that I'm able to share in an hour and a half have had a profound impact on the families that they serve. Like, it moves me to tears almost every time. Um, Talking to students in Australia, in Europe, in Canada, in Puerto Rico, like, what? You signed up for people? Like, it's overwhelming. Things have definitely slowed down, but the fact that even people like yourself reach out and say, hey, I want to talk, like, it's overwhelming.
In a good way?
In a humbling way.
Yeah.
It
I
makes me feel
mean,
like it's not in vain.
no, like, look at, like, you did this. You made this happen. That is an amazing legacy. Absolutely amazing. I always say, like, you can't change the world, but you can change your corner of the world. And you're just a shining star with that. And it's amazing to be able to speak with you.
I so appreciate that. We talked a minute ago about what I believe is on the other side, and that there's consciousness. I can't take credit for it. I feel like, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it. I feel like I am, my point, my purpose in being in this vessel is people that came before me that couldn't say the things that I say publicly,
Mm-hmm.
that couldn't call it out, that would be murdered for speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing one hell of a job. And it's so healing for the generations that came before you. And just bringing that peace is, wow. I like that. So, as you know, everyone has their death myth, their one thing that they're scared of, and usually it comes from, like some kind of loss that you've had, as a child or things like that. What is or was your death myth, and has being in this position changed it?
I think I have two.
Okay.
Three, actually. The first, like yourself, my uncle drank himself to death. And he didn't even make 50. He was 49.
Mm.
And so I share in your heart. I could feel it in my heart when you spoke about your dad. And I want you to know that we're connected in that way.
Yeah.
And the myth about that is that what would make a person be in that much pain, and that leads to the second, which is suicide. That the only source of comfort is alcohol, or the idea that you no longer want to exist in this vessel, in this consciousness, in this reality. The third is car accidents. They're so random. They're so unexpected.
Yeah.
And they leave such a feeling for me of incompleteness.
Mm-hmm.
You literally get in your vehicle thinking you're going to a destination, and you never get there.
Yeah.
And it's something that we all do voluntarily, multiple times
Yeah.
a day. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane. Yeah, those are it for me.
Yeah. You're putting a lot of trust into yourself and other people when you get into the driver's side of a vehicle. And it's just, I always drive like, you're in a hurry? Cool. Go ahead of me. Pass me. I'll move out of the way. There you go. Like, I'm not in a rush. I think my death myth is still with what happened with my dad. I don't want to die alone. I don't necessarily want to be like surrounded by loved ones kind of thing, but like my husband, my chosen family, my animals. And I think that one day, I hope that one day, when I do die, I have like a whole time of day that I want it to be, everything like that. I have planned the ideal death for myself. And it is outside in nature, by some water, with some animals. Anyways, I picture when I'm passing away that my very first dog ever jumps out of my dad's arms to come see me, wagging his tail and being all crazy. His name was Doug. He was 16 years old. He was a Pom Terrier mix, and I did not deserve that dog. The universe just blessed me with the perfect dog, and that made me think like, ooh, I'm gonna get more. And not all dogs are the same. That was a fun lesson. But yeah, I think I try to be at peace with myself, with self-discovery, with journaling, really getting to know who I am, and knowing that every day I'm doing my best. I'm seeing what my body can do and accomplish, and even on the days where I'm sick or I'm just staying in PJs all day. Like, I'm filling my cup, cool. And so I kind of feel like that mitigates the fear of a sudden death, because every day before I go to bed, I can write in my journal and be like, today was good. Even though bad things have happened, even though I'm feeling grief, I got air in my lungs, I'm still alive. That means I've still got some fight in me. And, let's do this. Yeah. Yeah. So what is your story? Like, my story is my father got me back into the death care industry when he passed away. Mm-hmm. And I find that anyone in the death care industry, they have that story that's like, they had a loss of some kind and they were like, okay, that's it. I found my calling. This is what I want to do. So, would you mind telling your story?
When I was 8 years old, I drew a picture of myself standing in a cemetery with a microphone, and it said, "I am the grave woman." I had on red lipstick, a purple suit, and some purple heels and some red nail polish. And if anyone's ever seen me speak, I always wear red lipstick. I have on pink today, but normally red. And my grandmother saved that photo for years, 10 years, and put it into a scrapbook that she made for me when I went off to college. This scrapbook sat in a box for another 10 years, till I was about 28 years old.
Yeah.
And just before graduating mortuary school, my sister and I were going through some boxes in my apartment, and she found this scrapbook with the picture that said, "I am the grave woman." Now, the funny part about that story is that I had recently started a blog, recent to that time, started a blog called The Grave Woman. I was talking about my experience in mortuary school and in getting ready for my apprenticeship. And so, yeah, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. And on a deeper level, I feel as if those spirits that occupied those vessels that couldn't speak up, right? That couldn't call out the nonsense and that couldn't say this is wrong, whispered in my ear at that time and told me who I'd be. And here I am today.
Wow. I'm like goosebumps. That's, yeah. What did it feel like for 28-year-old you looking at that drawing?
Freaky. Freaky. Like, how is this possible? I had no recollection of drawing the picture.
No?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
My grandmother tells me and I live in the house now, but my grandmother tells me that I used to lay on the kitchen floor and talk to people like I do now on stage. Like, I used to tell them, people are going to pay me to tell the truth and pay me to talk to them, and I'm going to get paid to talk. Like, she says I used to lay on the floor and talk like I talk at conferences now. I guess I imagined it, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. That's neat. Or it was just destiny, right? I do believe in destiny to a certain extent. Like, I believe we all have choices, for sure, but destiny is just, it's a feeling. And what a feeling that is, hey? What would you... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's kind of that feeling I get when I hear that song we talked about.
Yes.
And I had it this morning. I had it. Like I felt life slow down
Yeah.
this morning.
It's I love those moments because they're humbling and they're grounding, because I'll go, trudging through the house doing my domestic duties and taking care of the animals, and I'm like, life is good, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll have that moment and be like, whoa, what am I doing for myself today? How can I serve others today? And it kind of gets you out of that routine. And you're like, oh shit, I'm alive. Whoa. Cool. I'm going to go enjoy this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, before I let you go, I have one question for you. With where you are today, what would you tell 8-year-old little you? If you could go back and give her some words, what would you let her know?
Keep listening to those voices.
Mm.
Don't turn them off. They're
Trust
not
them.
evil. They're not bad. They're they love you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Beautiful.
ultimately that voice is you.
Yeah. You're a speaker for the universe. You are the universe expressing itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And so where can listeners find you online?
Just type in the Grave Woman on Google, or go to thegravewoman.com, or the Grave Woman on YouTube, or the Grave Woman on social media. I'm the Grave Woman everywhere. I'm proud to say I own that shit. Like I am the Grave Woman.
Good. Yeah, you're like, that's me. Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. And I hope we can stay in touch.
Oh my God, yes. This has been one of the most meaningful interviews I've ever had. Like, you
Oh,
asked great questions and
thank
you
you.
got me emotional.
I'm sorry. I
No,
have that
it's amazing.
I have that effect. I keep making people cry, and I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can find me online at www.dearpsychopomp.com or at contact@dearpsychopomp.com. I hope your weekend is gentle and full of opportunities.